Okay guys, so we've talked about seeds and what type of seeds to choose. We have also talked a little bit about planning out your garden and choosing what type of things that you need to or going to want to grow or need to grow in order to meet the goals that you have for your specific garden. So if you haven't watched those two videos, you can go check those out. They're the ones before this one. So now let's actually get into the actual seed starting process. So first thing, let's go over what are you going to need to start some seeds at home, okay? And I just want to, first thing I want to say is this can be as simple or as complicated or as intense as you want it to be, okay? So I'm just going to give you some options and then some things that really are necessary versus some things that you don't absolutely have to have, okay? So the first thing that we need to talk about is seeds. I've already went over what different types of seeds there are, but you're going to want to have your seeds ready to go when you're ready to start your seeds, obviously, and how you're going to decide how many seeds of each type of plant that you want to start. That's where the garden planning is going to come in, and that garden plan that you drew up that I made the last video about. So you're going to go back over that and look at that. Think about how many square feet you have, maybe revert back to that square foot growing guide and use that to count out how many of each type of seed you're going to want to start. So in my case, I know that I know how many tomato beds I'm going to have and how many tomatoes I'm going to want to plant in each one of those. I'm going to be planting 8 tomato plants in each one of those. And each bed is going to have a different type of tomato in it. So that means I'm going to need to start at least 8 tomato plants of each variety. But I'm actually going to start a few more than that because I like to give some away or have some, not every seed is going to turn into a healthy plant. So let's just say I'm only starting them for me and I want to make sure that I end up with 8 healthy tomato plants. I would probably start at least 12 cells of that variety, at the very least maybe 15 or 16. I might double it up just to make sure that I have enough plants to go around. And so that is how I would go off of that, and I'll make my list so that I know, hey, I need to start 16 Roma plants, 16 Cherokee purples, 16 homestead tomatoes, and then I will be able to go from there, okay? So you need to make your list of how many of each thing you want to start, and then from there, you can get started on filling up your trays. My first word of advice on trays is going to be if you have an option to try to pick trays that are a little bit deeper. Some can be super shallow, and it's just not, you're going to have to uppot your plants really quickly. And then underneath this is what we would consider I'm spilling dirt here, is what we consider the watering tray or the bottom tray, okay? This one does not have any holes in it, and so that is great. It's going to capture the water in the bottom and just hold in extra moisture. And so this one in particular, this holds 36. This is a 36 cell tray. I bought this, I don't know, several years ago, probably from Lowe's or Walmart or somewhere. It's held up really well. I know there are places like, I think it's Bootstrap Farmer and several actually gardening center places online where you can buy some really heavy duty, really good quality ones. If this is something you're going to really want to invest a lot of money in, you can, but you don't have to. This was like around $4 probably for this size. And okay, so you're going to need something to start your seeds in. I prefer these just because they fit under my grow lights nicely. But you can start out your seeds in something like a red Solo cup, or you can start them out in yogurt cups. I also have these, and this is what I'm doing plant sales. I start a lot of things in this size. They're 6 cell trays. Those are pretty good. And then these are either 3 or 4 inch pots. This is also, I mainly buy these because I like the way the nice clean pot looks when I'm doing plant sales. I can write on the outside of it too if I need to with a Sharpie. So you can start your seeds in that. These are kind of large, and eventually all my plants will end up in something larger like this that I've seed started. However, by the time they're usually moving up into things this size, I'm actually getting ready to move them out, and I'm starting to harden them off by moving them outside or into the outside little greenhouse. So that's usually I'm up potting to these, and I'm starting in these. That's because I have a limited amount of grow lights and a limited amount of space under those grow lights. So just to get my seeds up and running, I like to start in these smaller celled trays so I can fit more plants under my grow lights at a time. And because these are very easy to move around, that's why I like just going ahead and getting the actual cell trays, okay, versus having lots of little cups to have to move around. But that I'm also starting a lot of seeds. If you are only starting, maybe 6 tomato plants and just a few things here and there, you could totally get by with just some repurposing something you already have to start those seeds in. So you need something to start your seeds in. It needs to have some type of drainage in the bottom of the seed cells so that if you do overwater it, the water doesn't just sit there and rot the seed or rot the little seedling, which will kill them. So these have holes in the bottom. Any of the extra water gets trapped in this tray. I would also highly advise that you use something as a tray to catch water underneath any of those plant starts that you are starting, and especially if you're going to be stacking grow lights like how I have them stacked right here. I don't want water dripping down into those grow lights, so having trays underneath to catch that water instead is super important for me, and it can just be good to have for any surface that you're sitting on so it doesn't get ruined by leaking water from your trays. Okay, so we have that. So the next thing let's talk about is what type of soil are we going to fill our trays with, okay? So I use this natural and organic seed starting mix from Jiffy. I bought this for under $5. You can buy it at Tractor Supply, Walmart, Lowe's. It's all around $5 for that size bag that will fill up several of these seed trays. And the main thing with buying an actual seed starting mix versus like a Miracle-Gro potting mix is that the seed starting mix is much finer, and that's just going to work out a lot better when you're starting especially tiny little seeds that they don't need any resistance from large chunks of dirt in their way. So they're really going to germinate really nice and really quickly in a fine seed starting mix like that. Okay, so I've talked about the seed mix that you're going to use, and I've talked about the trays that you're going to use, or like cups or whatever. So let's take a quick moment here and let's go over my preferred method of getting the soil into those seed trays. There are two things that you can do. You can either just start by putting the dry seed mix in like this. My kids actually filled this up for me, and it wasn't dry at the time, but it has since dried out. But you can start it up with the seed mix going in here with it dry, and you can do that and then put the seeds in and then water. The problem I have with this is just when I'm trying to make my holes for the little seeds, it can be kind of annoying. Like, I don't know if you can see that or not, but it just kind of falls back in on itself. It's just not ideal. Or you can take your seed mix. Okay, take my seed mix here. I can add it into a bowl or tub, something like that. Add a little amount in here so you can see what I'm doing. And then I have some water, and this is like room temperature, like warm water. And that's especially important if you're going to be putting the soil in your trays and then immediately putting seeds in there. The warm water is going to help them germinate a lot quicker. And then I'm just going to add that water. I want to add a decent amount in there and stir it around. My kids love to do this for me. I don't usually let them, but I'll show you guys what I do here. So then you can tell how it starts out being super dry. And you really kind of have to work it in, this particular seed mix anyway, for it to really start to absorb the water. And it will take more water than what you would think it would. You want to add the water slowly so that you don't just end up with super soaking wet soil. And what we are going for is we want soil that's going to be moist, and whenever I pick it up in my hand, it will compact on itself, but it is not dripping wet. So maybe just a little bit more here, and I think we'll be ready to go. Okay. I'm going to show you what I mean by it not being too wet, but we do want it to be nice and moist. Okay. So now when I take some soil out in my hand, you can see here I can, whatever I want to do with it, it will just stay like that, and it's like squishy, but I'm not, like when I'm squishing this, like tons of water, there's a little bit of water if I squeeze really hard, but it just kind of stays like however I put it, but it's not just dripping wet, and it's not actually just like falling apart because it's overly wet. Of course, if you get it too wet, you just add a little bit more soil to it. This is looking really good. And then once I have it where it's all nice and moist, then is when I will go ahead and put this into my seed tray. So then I can just go ahead and fill up my seed trays with this. The other benefit to doing this way is that once the soil has absorbed its moisture, you're going to have a lot better idea of if your seed tray is really full or not. A lot of times when you put that dry seed starting mix into your trays, and then you go to try to fill it up with water, you're going to realize, oh, I don't actually have that much soil in there. And then you still got to come back over it and fill it up some more. So I'm just going to go over that and cover those, put that in there so they're filled up to the top. And then when I come back in here to poke my holes, if you can see that or not, but now when I go to make a hole to seed start in, it actually retains the spot where I want to put my seed, and I will just be able to move a lot quicker through here, putting my seeds in once it's time to actually put the seeds into that soil. Okay, so we've talked about your soil, your trays, your seeds. Let's talk about grow lights. Do you need them or do you not? This can be kind of tricky, but my advice is yes, you're gonna need grow lights, and here's why. Especially like right now, I'm getting ready to start tomatoes and peppers and such as that. Though, especially tomatoes and peppers, they come from an area where the days are long and very warm. So they're gonna need like 12 hours of light at least a day while the seedlings are growing, just because that's the type of plant they are. They're like a tropical plant. And so right now, if I were to start my tomatoes and pepper seeds and just sit them outside or sit them in my windowsill, right now here in Tennessee, we do not have 12 hours of light yet. And so those seedlings, as they would be getting started, they would not thrive as well as they would whenever I'm able to set my grow lights for 12 to 14 hours a day and provide that light to them. So that is why I recommend using grow lights, is because unless you just already live somewhere where it is super warm and your days are already really long, like January, February, March, which if you did live somewhere like that, you'd be able to just start your seeds outdoors anyway. But for the rest of us, the most of us in the world that are trying to start seeds in February, that is because it's still cold outside and our days are not long enough yet to grow the things that we're trying to start. So that is where needing to have a grow light really comes into play, is that you're providing more light than what you have naturally available in your windowsill or outside at the moment. So there's all sorts of different types of grow lights that you can choose. I think I may have bought these at Lowe's or Home Depot, somewhere of that nature. They've worked great. I've had them for several years. Honestly, I don't remember what brand they are. I think they may be the Ferrymore brand. That's the same as a lot of seeds, but these have worked out well. They were specifically sold as seed starting lights. These came with legs that you could attach to them if you wanted to, but you can also get lights that you can hang, that you can clip on. So just some type of supplemental lighting that you can put over your plants and that you can adjust to make them higher or lower is really going to be your best bet. And you can do, there's all sorts of different types of light bulbs to choose from. And that's where I would recommend you either just buy some that say they are for seed starting, or you really do your research before you spend money on maybe something that doesn't say, that wasn't specifically designed to start seeds with, to make sure that that light is going to be provide enough of the right type of light for your seeds. Okay, and then you're going to need somewhere to put your seed trays. Depending on what you're doing, I bought this as a mini greenhouse. I actually mainly bought this because it has a clear thing that you can zip up around, and it's because our cats will not leave my plants alone. And so I bought this so I could zip it up and they can't get in there and like mess in the soil and climb the shelves and all that sort of stuff. But that's not necessary. That's just, I went ahead and bought that for the reason of keeping our cats out. But you're just going to need somewhere that's a big enough space to put those trays and the lighting over them. And I have also I pop out like this fold out table and set my lights up on them and put my trays under them. That has worked as well, as long as I am able to keep our cats out. So that is something that you could buy, something like that. You could buy a special shelving unit just to house your seedlings, but and that would be great, especially if you're going to be doing this on like a larger scale operation. But it's not necessary. You can just choose a side of your kitchen counter if you want to start these in, or bathroom counter, or wherever. Okay, let's see here. Let's also talk about, you're going to need a waterproof marker, and you're going to need something to mark your plants with. So let me grab, this came with some markers in it. This came with like this type of marker that you can write on. What I buy are, these are blank, and I buy them by 1,000 pack, and you would be surprised how quick you can go through 1,000 plant markers. But these are specifically made to be able to write on and be waterproof with a waterproof marker like a Sharpie. And this isn't a fine tip, but I would recommend, if you're going to go buy a Sharpie anyway, that you buy a fine tip waterproof marker to write with, just because it's easier and you can get more info on this small space. But you're going to need something to mark those plants with as you put the seeds in. It doesn't have to be anything like this. It doesn't have to be elaborate. You could actually take like a Solo cup and you could cut it up into strips if you had, and use those to mark it. I have used popsicle sticks. You could, same thing with like a yogurt cup, you could cut it into little strips and write on it with a Sharpie and use those. So yeah, just something to mark those seeds, because very quickly you will forget what all you planted. And I would also recommend writing on your markers, on your plant marker, the date that you started your seed, or put it into your like your phone calendar, or write it on a calendar the date that you started them, because that's something else you think that you'll remember, but you'll end up forgetting. So those are the basics that you're going to need to get started. One thing that I would recommend, if you're somebody who's very forgetful, or if you do not have a very routine schedule and sometimes you're gone like till later in the evening, or you have to be gone super early in the morning, is that you can buy, they're pretty cheap, a timer. You can buy like the same type of timer that you would use for like Christmas lights. You can buy them specifically to start seeds with. Any type of timer that you plug in, and you plug in your other, it's like a little outlet timer, and it will kick on and off. That is really great to have with seed starting, because what you do not need to do is leave your lights on like 24/7. You will put your plants under a lot of stress, and they will eventually die, because plants do need that time of darkness just as much as they need so many hours of light. Where that can get tricky is some plants do need more hours of light than others. However, if you are only going to buy one timer, I would always just lean more towards having too much light on the plant than not enough. But you do not want to have that light on 24/7. So that's pretty important as well. But that is not necessary. We're pretty routine people. I don't have a timer on mine right now. I'll just come out here every evening when I'm locking up all the doors for the night, getting ready for bed, and unplug everything. Then in the morning, after I drink my coffee, or while my coffee is being made, I just come out here and plug everything up. So it's pretty easy, but I'm at home most of the time. Like I said, if you have a busy schedule, buying a timer would be probably really helpful for you. So those are the basics. Something to start your seeds in, seeds, some soil mix, some water, plant markers, a waterproof marker, somewhere to put your trays once you get them started, and definitely some type of grow light. That's going to be super important for those things that you're going to be starting early, like your brassicas and your tomatoes and peppers, onions, herbs such as that. Those are really going to need those grow lights to get off to a head start, because you do not have enough natural light right now to provide that light that those plants are going to need. Now, things later on in the season, maybe in like late March, April, if you're starting things like beans or squash, stuff like that, you can get by with starting those on your countertop and a windowsill without grow lights. But for these early things, you're really going to need a grow light. So I hope that has helped you, and we'll just keep moving along. And the next video I will be making is going to be on the specifics of successfully starting tomatoes and peppers from seed. So I'll see you next time.